Probably what happened is I opened my window just now,
Yeah.
'cause it's a little dark, and so it didn't light adjust well, and so I just
Yeah.
needed to turn it off and on. The digital light adjust. All right, you ready?
Yeah. I have to like kind of close my blinds sometimes too, man, because that sun comes blurring in. It comes in from this side and comes in through this window that's in front of me. And sometimes it'll get like hot in my room in this
Yeah,
office because of that. So um it's nice that this morning we actually have overcast where I don't even have to worry about that. Like I actually have my blinds open because it's not coming in like this, like I'm sitting next to a furnace or something. So
yeah.
that's nice. Uh, but over the weekend, I was thinking about like, uh, but a lot of times I'll put stuff. I've been known, and I know this. Like, if I take some time and I think about this, I will intentionally, not intentionally, but subconsciously or unintentionally, I will like put too much on my plate,
Hmm.
and then I'll end up with all this, with all these like things that I have to do or that I've committed myself to. And I actually did this, like I've done this for a long time, and I remember doing this at USA. Uh, I'd have my regular work, and then people would ask, "Hey, we need somebody to do this, or we need somebody to do that." And then we also have a hackathon coming up. We also have this, and I'd be like, "Oh,
Yeah,
I can do this, I can do that." And then I take on all this extra stuff. And then you've also got the stuff, I've also got the stuff at home, like right, like family life that I've got to juggle,
right.
and um, ultimately I end up with all this stuff on my plate, and it ends up becoming too much, and then I'll get to the point where I'm like, okay, I have to trim back. And so basically that's what happened this weekend was I got to the point where I was like, I've got to trim some of these layers out, right? Trim some of this back. And so you start looking at like what's really important to you right now. um and you have to think about, like, if you're going forward with something, is that the something that you want to see, or something that's really important? And then, because ultimately you can pull stuff out.
Yeah,
um it feels like everything needs to get done, but in reality that's not the truth. There's always something that you can easily pull out.
yeah. It's funny. Like, I remember way back at USA, I was doing similar to you, like a bunch of different things, and I had my tech lead kind of make this recommendation to me. Shout out Scott Durand. Don't know if you ever worked with Scott. Brilliant guy. Um, but he was like, here's what you need to do. Just make a list of everything that you're doing right now. And then, like, the first thing to do is go through and say, what am I okay with not getting done? Like, what do I can I just not do? And then he was like, and then the stuff that has to be done, ask, what am I okay with somebody else doing? I think this question is so brilliant. Asking, what am I okay with someone else doing? Because, like, I mean, I don't know. I'm like that possum in the trash can. This is my garbage, like I went into it. But like at some point you have to like say like I'm fine with, like, we pay for services around a bunch of things. One of them is that sometimes somebody will come or cut our grass. I love working in the yard, but I'm perfectly okay with somebody else doing that. And it's something that I can't do and something that I have to do because otherwise I'll get an HOA letter, right? Like they'll be like, your
Right.
grass sucks or whatever. Like, um and so like I think that like phasing is really smart. One thing that like is really stuck with me for a long time, probably back from when I was in the army, but especially because I was in college, was learning that, like, I think a lot of us, like you said, like we think about to-dos and task management of like all of the stuff we're going to do, and really it's kind of the opposite of that. It's like, what am I not going to do? What am I okay with just saying, like, I'm not doing that? And I think that, like, especially because otherwise you feel overwhelmed. Steph and I were talking just this weekend about like all the stuff that's not getting done around the house, just very candidly, not because we're like we're like fighting about it, but because we're just recognizing that there's still a lot of stuff we need to be doing around the house that's not being done. And like the kind of conclusion we came to is, right now I have a job that's working, that's what I do, right? And she has a job, and that job is like taking care of the kids.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole third job then, and that is like all of the house stuff. There's a third, that's a third job.
Yeah.
And so I was like, we can either do our other two jobs halfway in order to do that job halfway, or we can do our jobs all the way and either let that job not get done or have somebody else do it. That's really it. Like, those are the options. And you have to decide what you're okay with there, or we have to, but like we definitely can't do it all. And I think it's dangerous to our culture and to our mental health to continue to try, for sure.
Yeah, I like that you called that out. Like the mental health stuff too. There's a huge impact. A lot of times, I was reading something. Oh, there was like an article in one of these things, and it was asking. I don't remember where it was from, but it was recently, and it was asking like, who's. It said, "What's the biggest factor of stress?" And like one of the options was yourself. And if you looked at the poll, the majority of people responded with it was their self that was the
Mhm.
majority. That was the majority responsible for their stress, like at work even. And I'd say for me, it's also that what happens is when you have like, you talked about like the capacity to care. We talk about like you've got a capacity to do a thing, right? Capacity to
Mhm.
care, capacity to learn something. And it's like if you go and you learn something, remember, imagine back to like you're cramming for something you're trying to learn. After a while, your brain hurts. Like
Mhm.
you're like I don't know about you, maybe it's just me, but my brain actually hurts. Like I feel like I'm like, oh man, I'm trying to put too much in there, right? It's a muscle. I'm working it real hard, and it's like okay, I need a break. And sometimes you can
Mhm.
be so tired that you can go like need a nap after just
Yeah.
like learning a bunch of stuff, right? Because again, it's another like muscle that you're working. So when you're taking on too many things, right? You've got all these things that you have to do. You're taxing yourself, and so going back to like the stress part, when you have all this other stuff going on besides like the thing that you have to do for work, then you end up like, not necessarily just burning yourself out, but getting to a point of like exhaustion where it's like, oh, okay, I need to reset. And a lot of
Yeah.
times, if you get to the weekend and you don't reset, you just continue to flow at that pace. And then here comes Monday, and Monday feels like, I feel like for me, that's when Monday feels really rough. When I
Mhm.
didn't allow myself to breathe on the weekend, um, you know, and then I get into Monday and it's like there was never any reset time. It was just go, go, go because I'm, building one of these projects or doing something with CoGym or whatever it is. No reset time. And then uh, again, so then Monday rolls over and it feels like, man, it's really rough. And the truth is, like, my job is not that hard. It's mostly just code. I've um, that's what I've been trying to focus on. But anyway, I'm kind of ranting here and venting. I think that's part of what this podcast is like just allows us to rant and to vent
Yeah.
and to talk about how things really are. But anyway, like this weekend was that for me. Is what I'm getting at. I took a long way to get there, but this weekend was that for me. It was, I need to reset. I need to shed some of those layers, right? I need to pull some of that off. And I need to really just kind of focus what's all important. So I didn't do any coding this week. Like I was away from my computer.
Yeah.
I think the whole weekend. I think, yeah. Um, Even Saturday morning, I didn't do anything. I went like I got a haircut, and getting a haircut is like one of those big refreshing things. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I try to now. I schedule haircuts regularly as opposed to wait to the last minute and then try to find somewhere that's open. So now every time I finish a haircut, I just schedule the next one.
Nice.
So I schedule them. I get a text message. Awesome, I got a haircut because it's like an experience. So this week, a lot of times I get up on Saturday morning and I write code or I do something. I didn't do that this Saturday. I got up and I got some breakfast and I had to go straight to a haircut, right? So then I came back and I had other stuff to do. I didn't have time to sit on my computer. And that is what I needed. And
Yeah.
I just reset. And so I'm here on Monday and I'm feeling ready for the week.
Nice. I think there's something to this. Like there's this ongoing um like conversation, I think, on the internet for the last few years around scheduling your hobbies. And I know you're not talking about your haircut is not your hobby, but like I'm going to like proxy that for like the idea of like scheduling your reset time. And this is really challenging because like when you schedule your hobbies, like I think so many in our industry would be inclined to say that code is their hobby and tech is their hobby. And I would just say to those people, then get a second hobby. Like get because if you go like um and so but there is something to that, right? Like you mentioned, obviously I don't schedule my haircuts anymore, but like having that like, hey, I know that once every 3 weeks I have to take a walk through a park, like I have to. And and one of the part of that is that it creates the space in your family rhythms that like people know that every Saturday morning, every third Saturday morning, Ram is going to be gone. He's out of the house. He's not there to shuffle yogurts and pour cereal and turn on cartoons and whatever. I don't know. I think y'all's family cadence is a little different than ours at this point. Basically, our family cadence though starts at like around 7 and it's chaos until 9.
Nice.
Like
Yeah.
I mean, you've been there. And so like, but like getting when you start to schedule those things, then there's an acknowledged like, oh, he's just not gonna be here this period of time, or she's not gonna be there, right? Like maybe you're like Steph wants to go to like a book club. She loves, we love to read and stuff. And but like so scheduling your hobbies gives you it forces that refresh time. And it creates it creates space in your calendar. Um and so like I really do like that. I also think that there is something just to be said for a good haircut. Like I know you called that out specifically. And I remember when I was in the service, you'd always go off post to one of those like little,
Yeah.
you know, places and get just like a really good haircut from somebody that, would really like took their time. And uh there's something to be said about like being, well groomed for all the connotations of that word.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a big thing. And so it's good. And the great thing about that is if you're scheduling your hobbies, when we think about that layer cake and we look at all of the things that must be done, right? What typically falls off is the stuff that we think of as like a waste of time, entertainment, and like relaxation. Like that's like, oh, I can do everything if I just don't sleep as much. Like you see that like that
Yeah.
proliferates all over the LinkedIn. Like, oh, what if I just don't sleep as much? If you sleep less or you wake up early, like you'll get so much more done. Yeah, and you'll also die 10 years earlier. Like there's just like you're just borrowing time from the end of your life and burning it now. And so like the thing about scheduling your hobbies or scheduling your haircuts or whatever it is like that I think about is that it forces it higher up in that layer cake. It's like not the thing to remove. Like if I could just emphasize that, like having a hobby, having relaxation, like breathing, those are not the things to take out of the layer cake. It's the doing. That's the thing to take out of a layer cake. Like I love the old saying, like we're not a human doing, we're a human being. And like that's important. Just be.
Yeah. Uh, you said that some people they're like, oh, I code is my job and then code is my hobby. I fall I fall into that boat because I would often um respond like that. People, you join a company or people ask, oh yeah, what do you do? Oh, what do you do for fun? Oh, I write code also. And I think that that can also cause a lot of problems too if your hobby is also your job.
Mhm.
Um because you never get a break from it. And so there's times like when I will acknowledge that and I'll go and do something else. So again, I my 13-year-old, I've been slowly teaching him guitar, and it's been like therapeutic for me to like sit and play, and then I'll let him play, and then sometimes I'll be like, okay, well let me play something. And so I, getting to the point to where it's very much like my hobby needs to not be code.
Mhm.
I need to have a different hobby, and then just find time for it within the day. But if something gets dropped off, that extra code or that extra time, writing code for me, then that I need to drop that off because that's contributing to the other stuff. But definitely don't drop the other things, right? Like entertainment. So I would often respond to is with, I don't watch a lot of TV, right? I
Mhm.
write code because it's fun or whatever, but then I never get a break. And
Right.
so I noticed that when I go back and I watch a show, right? I watch something like that's really refreshing for me because it becomes like this mindless distraction that you can go and do something like inconsequential, right? I can go and watch Hard Knocks. So
Mhm.
I like football, and so I'm not a super huge fan like some folks, but I like football, and so I've started watching Hard Knocks, and so when the season comes around, I'll watch it, and then the season starts, and I'll watch a couple games, but not like as much as some folks. So, but either way, that's a way for me to just relax and watch something. I have no like dog in the fight, right? I have no
Right.
stake in the game. It's just it's kind of like mindless TV. you get to push out some of the other things that are in there that are, causing you the stresses and stuff like that. So I definitely think it's important. Um, and I think we bring this up for many reasons. One, because it's totally real to
Yeah.
us. Like I know we both like write a like we're on the machine a lot, right?
Yeah.
We're in the matrix like a whole lot.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you've got to come out, and we've talked about this before, like, the stuff that we're building, there's definitely a want and a need to, as part of those things that we're building, to build something real.
Hmm.
And what I mean by real is like something physical, not just in the digital world, right? Like
Right.
here's another SaaS offering,
Right.
here's a website to go to. No, it's I want to give you something real at some point. Because right, it's tangible and it kind of grounds you in reality. And being in the matrix like too much can actually, because that's definitely what it feels like. I mean, you're just in there, and uh it could go on and on and on. I'll leave. This will be the last thing I say about this. But you remember the movie Inception? Did you ever see it?
Hmm.
So it's basically about dreams, right? But it really kind of, for me, it kind of ties into like tech. You can go into these different layers, right? And the further down you go, the like the slower time passes,
Yeah.
right? And I forget the character's name, but Cobb needs to go back and find him because he's so many layers down, and he's an old man.
Yeah.
And he goes in and he finds them, right? And he said, I've been waiting for you all these years, or something like that. And I think about that. And that's us. Like we
Yeah.
get we get layers deep in this, in your mind, even though, and sometimes you see it on your body, but
Yeah.
definitely on your mind, there's like this old man that's waiting to be pulled out, right? We need our Cobb to come back and pull us out.
Yeah. That's a really good. I mean, I think about that as like my kids. Like, I don't. I think the one, sort of like counterbalance that I have is the kids being as young as they are, because I don't get on the machine on the weekends, pretty much at all. Like, I don't even come up to my computer really, unless it's like after they're in bed for the night, and usually, and lately, not even then. But um, like the idea of them pulling this out, like even my son this morning, as I dropped him off for school, he says, "You don't want me to do the boring part." And like we can get into like my son's, basically he's saying like, "I don't want you to go to work."
Yeah.
And like that's that moment of like pulling you out. It's like remembering that, like, even my kids kind of see it as like they realize like that's not any fun. And so yeah, I think that's it, is like we need something to pull us out of the machine again, and remember that there's a real world out there with real trees. Like you and I both love working out in the yard, and real overcast skies, and 75-degree days where kids can go down slides and stuff like that. Like we need somebody to come pull us out of the machine for sure.